Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization, our new series, Strength Training Myths. And this is video number 1. You need to max out to get stronger. Let's take a look at this myth. First, we're going to define strength very specifically. Then we're going to ask the question, does maxing out, doing 1 rep maxes, actually work to increase strength? Then we're going to ask the question of what else works if that works as well? And then we're going to talk about the final sort of big piece of the puzzle is what is actually the best approach if we want to enhance our strength the most possible. So we can define strength in a bunch of different ways, but the major way is the ability to produce high levels of force. And 1 repetition max testing or exhibition is absolutely the greatest way to demonstrate that. But do we have to train like that to increase our strength? And if we do, is that the only thing that increases strength? Or are there other things that increase strength? Because a lot of guys will say that you got to do max singles if you want to get strong, bruh, bro, the original and best. So they'll make claims like that, and it sounds tough, it sounds cool, it sounds hardcore, but how true really is it? So first question here is, does maxing out work to increase strength? Well, it sure as hell doesn't hurt. It definitely will make you stronger. In some special situations, it's absolutely not the best way to go. If you're a very advanced athlete, sometimes it can be understimulative to actually do singles and too much fatigue. We'll get to that in a bit more specifically. Sometimes if you're injured or you have an injury history, you have to do more submaximal training because you can't do maximal training consistently anymore because it irritates structures too much and gets you hurt. But for the most part, if average lifters do lots of heavy singles, that absolutely will cause an increase in strength. Notice I didn't say the biggest increase in strength, so it definitely works because it has to. It's the peak of specificity. I mean, you're literally training exactly what it is you're going to be getting ready for. It's got to do something, and it absolutely does. However, there are other ways to gain strength, okay? And a great way to gain strength is to do repetitions. Not just maxes, sets of 3 to 6 reps at an RPE of like 7 to 10, somewhere on average, 8.5 RPE. You can do a lot of things. First, that weight on your back, a 7 to 10 RPE set of 3 to 6 reps, is absolutely heavy enough. It provides enough tension to stimulate strength adaptations very, very robustly. Because in order to get stronger, you have to train heavy, and sets of 3 to 6 and RPE of 7 to 10 is absolutely heavy enough. But there are other benefits. Because you're doing multiple reps per set, let's say a set of 5, each repetition is heavy enough to cause a stimulus. But you don't just do one, because in a max single, you do 1 rep, which is a good deal of tension stimulus, and then you stop, and that was a set. You did 1 repetition of really good stimulus, maybe let's say that much stimulus, and that's good, and you stop, right? A set of 5, for example, at an RPE 8, may give you this much stimulus, okay, less than that single at whatever 100% or 97.5%, but there's 5 of them shits, and each one gives you a stimulus. Now, if you add up the total stimulus of each one of those 5, it's way, way bigger. Because there's so much of that stimulus, because you're doing multiple reps, the message to the cells, to the nervous system, etc., to the structures to increase strength is really, really large, generally larger than any one set of a single, even if it's the heaviest weight you can do, can actually give you, right? However, here's the really cool thing. A set of 3 to 6 repetitions, hard, heavy, is generally about as fatiguing as a set of just 1 maximum repetition. Well, hold on a second. How does that make sense? A set of 5 has to be more fatiguing than a single. Well, a set of 5 really does beat you up. But a real, true max single, I mean, good God, that is a real all-out effort, and it will fatigue you a lot. And it turns out to be a relatively comparable amount of fatigue. There's some complicated variables, and for some people under some situations, one could have more, one could have less, but it's generally comparable, same sort of order of magnitude. However, remember that the stimulus from the set of 3 to 6 is way higher because it layers the multiple reps and each one stimulates strength on its own. We only just get 1 rep in the single. So the stimulus to fatigue ratio of a set of 3 to 6 at 7 to 10 RPE is usually pretty much higher, significantly higher in many cases, than the stimulus to fatigue ratio of just 1 rep. So if you're building a really good training program, you want to squeeze in as much stimulus as you can for as little fatigue as you can, because fatigue is finite. You can only accumulate so much until it starts to mess up your program. If you're trying to get strong, doing mostly sets of 3 to 6 is just better than doing lots of singles, because it'll give you more stimulus, make you stronger with less or actually equivalent fatigue if you ratio the sets 1 to 1. And then over the course of a mesocycle, let's say lasts 4 or 5 weeks before you deload, you get this much stimulus and this much fatigue. Whereas with just singles, you get this much stimulus and that much same amount of fatigue. It's just not as good. It doesn't make you as strong in the long run, right? And most people figure this out at some point in the strength training journey, that sets of 3 to 6 just increase 1 RM strength better than sets of just 1 rep, especially in the long term of weeks and months. There's a specificity effect where when you're right about to compete, sets of 1 to 3 reps are absolutely better because they prepare you for that exact task. General underlying strength, the stuff that'll carry you really far, is better increased with sets of 3 to 6 than singles. Now, does that mean we don't really do any singles ever? It doesn't. And here's where we get to our best approach, best of all worlds. Singles are not the best way to increase strength in the long term with consistent month in, month out training. Too much fatigue for the stimulus, and it's not as sustainable as sets of 3 to 6, never mind the injury risk, which is another layer on top of that. Singles are a little bit more dangerous than sets of 5 or something like that. However, within several weeks of doing mostly sets of 1 to 3 reps, many of them can be singles, your nervous system and your technique align for maximum force production in that 1 rep. It's the ultimate example of specificity. You can be very generally strong from an awesome foundation of sets of 3 to 6, but it doesn't matter how generally strong you are at the powerlifting meet. It only matters how much you can actually lift 1 rep. And that tail end, last several weeks of practice should be done often with heavy singles. An analogy here is, you essentially practice whatever performance you want to show off. Many people don't know this about me, but I was a select member of many global dance troupes when I was a child, usually interpretive dance, sometimes modern. And we in dance class didn't always practice the final year-end dance recital every single day. That's ridiculous. Worked on tons of stuff. And then, but the last couple of weeks before the big show, you practice the big show. Just like a powerlifter, make sure to build a great base. But look, a few weeks out, a month out or so from an actual powerlifting meet, you had better get used to doing doubles, triples, and a lot of singles, because that's where you're going to be tested. Even if it's not the best way to increase your global strength, the specific strength needs to be practiced. If you're awesome at sets of 3 to 6, you can do well in a meet, but not your absolute very best. By the way, how many of you guys believe that I was actually a dancer? I fucking danced to save my life, but I am a great compulsive liar. And I wasn't a compulsive lying team before. What? In any case, to increase strength the best that you can, mostly train in the 3 to 6 rep range. That's what increases your basic core strength. And then 1 to 2 months, depending on certain circumstances, before you want to show it off, be that in the gym or in a meet, you start to pepper in more and more sets of 3, sets of 2, and maximum singles, so that by the time you step on the platform or into the gym to do your best single, you're absolutely ready, and you didn't spend the entire year peaking, you spent the rest of the year building strength, and now you're able to show it off your absolute best. Folks, I wish you best in your training, and if you ever want tips about how to be an awesome dancer, just comment below.